That was awesome. Hello, everyone. My name is Melanie Dowse, and I'm the president of ACC Georgia Chapter. The ACC, or Association of Corporate Counsel, is an organization that is devoted to the support, networking, and education of in-house counsel. And we are very pleased to be presenting this Pandemic Exhaustion Talk Show with our friends at GAPABA. Now I'll turn it over to Angela Hsu.
All right, thanks so much. So this is Pandemic Exhaustion, the talk show. I'm your host, Angela Hsu. I've got some awesome guests today. I've got Daniel Nguyen over there. Say hi to the people. Jason Esteves.
Hey, yes.
Bonnie Yoon. And Catherine Hutton with me. Okay. Yeah, if anyone has logged on thinking this is going to be a really deep, substantive program, you have logged on to the wrong program. I am so sorry. We're just going to have fun today. So to kick us off, Dan, if you could you look like you're in the office. Have you returned to the office, and what is Morris Manning like these days?
Thanks, Angela. I am in a office. I am not in my office at Morris Manning. So I've been lucky to, or unlucky to, be able to work from home. And so, I've been in my office since March of this year. Morris Manning opened up our offices in Atlanta June 1st. And so it's been a partial reopening, and you're required to wear masks if you're walking in the halls, the conference rooms, break rooms, and common areas are closed out. So you're really just kind of holed up in your office. So they've given the option for folks to work from home if they can.
And what about you, Jason? So you're at which Equifax office are you at? I think you're at Equifax, right?
I'm in the corporate main office off 1550 Peachtree, and like Daniel at Morris Manning, we are partially open, have been partially open for the last couple months, and have been on a staggered schedule to ensure that there are no more that our buildings are no more than 50% occupancy at any given time. And I've actually gone in. I try to go in a couple days a week, and have actually loved it because it's calmer than being at home with two kids. But at the same time, you don't feel as concerned because hardly anyone is in the office. So you get a lot of quiet time to do your work.
And what age are your kids, Jason?
I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, which it's an exciting age, very exciting.
So Catherine, I think when we were kind of talking about this show, we were talking about the differences. It's kind of interesting, the people that really like being back in the office and the people like me who really haven't been back very much. So kind of tell us a little bit about that. Like, who are the people at Change Healthcare who are clamoring to come back to the office, and who are the ones who are like, you know what, this is pretty cool?
Well, it's very surprising, actually, who actually wants to get back in this and who does not. And it was the reverse of what I thought. Change Healthcare is sort of a startup from a Fortune 10 company, and sort of the old guard of the former company. We're the kind of people who said everybody comes into an office, we come 5 days a week. And it's interesting that sort of the older, maybe baby boomers, have discovered that not commuting, not having to wear a suit and tie every day is actually a wonderful thing. So I find that the people most likely to aggressively advocate for more permanent work from home are the baby boomers, whereas the millennials, who, with their tech savvy, seem, I would have thought would have been more excited about, hey, we're getting the old people on board, have maybe been struggling a little bit more with the lack of socializing, that in between. I'm a Gen Xer, so I miss people. I'm also an extrovert. So this has been very hard on me, having the only person I can talk to is my family. I mean, that's great, but there's a reason I actually like to work. But it's sort of that, it's different than I would have thought, that older workers, in my company at least, are enjoying the work from home, and the millennials and younger people miss the social interaction of an office.
Yeah, and I also heard what Jason said, the people with very small children who you can't leave, alone for hours and hours, they struggle a little bit too. So Bonnie, you've got kind of all ages at your office as well. So what's your experience been?
Sure. Well, actually, I first wanted to share the first day I returned back to work. I have a photo, and I think that our tech support Profi can share. The very first day, I was so paranoid that I came not just with a mask, but I came with a full-blown face shield. I wore plastic gloves, and that's me operating my toaster at the office. So that was, unfortunately, I only deal with fur kids at home. So I think, unlike most of the panelists here, I don't have kids, but trust me that kitties can be sometimes just as distracting. And we just took on a foster kitty. On your left, that's Milo cat. When one of my coworkers, unfortunately, moved back home with her sister who is allergic to cats. So introducing the kitties. This is fake news because those 3 kitties on the right do not normally look like that. So going back to your question, Angela, what was it like? So yes, I'm fortunate that I'm on the first floor, so I don't have to deal with an elevator situation going back to work. We all have our own fairly large enclosed offices. And so the only interaction in open spaces would be in the kitchen or bar area, because Raj has a full bar at the office, and or if we were to be watching TV in our lobby area. Raj comes in every day with a mask. All of us come in every day with a mask. But I have to say, because I can close my door, I'm fortunate that I can take off my mask. And I am actually in my office right now, although one of the aspects of Zoom is I get to put on any lovely virtual background I want. So, and we also do have some staggered returns as well. At first, we were not coming in on Fridays. Of course, when there was the quarantine going on, we were not coming in. But Fridays are pretty loosey-goosey, and Tuesdays and Thursdays, we tend to have more people in here than not.
Okay, so we've got a poll for the Zoom audience as opposed to Facebook audience. We've got a poll up right now. Have you returned to your physical office? So just click yes or no, and then we will read the answers. I'm betting that most people probably have not, and there's probably more people that are still in some form of working from home. So speaking of which, I want people to kind of share their worst part of working from home. I had one, it wasn't a Zoom incident. Well, there was one Zoom incident. First time I logged onto Zoom, I didn't realize that I was logging on as my son. So I was on a work call and I was on the bridge of the Enterprise, which was just shocked to me. Everyone else was like, they didn't say anything, but I was like, I'm on the bridge of the Enterprise. So Catherine, if you kind of share one of your stories, what's the worst part of working from home, or have you had any kind of Zoom incident or, anything like that?
We'll sort of share some collective experiences. My own is that my daughter thinks it's fun to pop into the room and sort of say hello, to different people as I'm presenting. Yes, I try to keep her busy with arts and crafts. This is one where apparently that is the lid of a pot. And she thought it was funny to sort of tie it up into her sweatshirt. So I don't know that she expected the picture, which is sort of the look of expression, but I like thinking that I did that to her. But people with kids have all sorts of stories. Mine is, my general counsel has now met my daughter, and fortunately I work for a company that's very receptive and understanding of kids popping in unexpectedly, and my daughter has been sort of a part-time presenter on a few presentations I've had to make purely for enjoyment. But there are other instances when you have to issue school instructions or discipline and you forget to mute, and that happened to a colleague. Her professional voice on, okay, this is what I think, and then turn around, would you pipe down? The whole mean mama persona got broadcast over the conference call, and people, treated it with humor, but it's also very embarrassing how you perhaps talk to your children when they're misbehaving. It's not really the professional presentation you want to give. So that's created some awkward moments, I think, for quite a few parents, myself included.
What about Jason? What's your worst work from home moment?
Yeah, well, I think so. Two things. One is that because you're at home all the time, you're kind of working all the time. It almost feels like, and times run together. So some of my worst moments have been just forgetting calls, just because I started doing something else. So whether it's disciplining my children or talking to my children or talking to my wife or eating or whatever it is, you forget that you're at home, but you're also working, and that you should probably be keeping track of the time. So that's my number one. My number two, you see my family there, is my wife, who is also a professional who's been working from home, has taken our home office. So I have been in our sitting area of our bedroom for the last 4 or 5 months, and I don't have the comfortable chair that I have in our office. I don't have the comfortable desk. And I'm not in there now. This is a random room we could talk about later. But it's a very uncomfortable office, or a comfortable space. So that's, to me, the worst part of this pandemic, is that my wife is living pretty in her office with beautiful backgrounds, and I'm in my sitting area, working with my back hunched over, trying to get comfortable with my computer.
Yeah, so yeah, I am in my home office, but sometimes I have to share it with my husband, who's a doctor, and it's like it can get kind of loud in here because he's got elderly patients, and he's like, like it's teledoc. But so the poll results are 90% of the people have not returned to the office, as you can imagine. But yeah, my office also similarly has actually not been spruced, even though it is the official home office. It kind of looks like a TSA interrogation room. Dan, what's your worst pandemic working from home moment?
I kind of agree with Jason that the idea of like work-life balance has kind of been blurred a little bit because you're always at home and you're always at work a lot of times. So that certainly happens. And, with Catherine, there's, I have a 2-year-old and a dog that don't respect boundaries and things like that. So that happens a lot. But I think it's incumbent on like kind of leadership, or like if you're a partner, or if you have a position at an in-house. She's not that sweet. Don't let that fool you. To kind of normalize that behavior. Like if the kid comes in the call, it's fine. It's fine to have during a Zoom call to fix lunch at the same time, especially internally. So I try to kind of portray that. At least that's my official line, at least. But I think the biggest thing is like, you should expect every day is never going to be perfect. I mean, to give you an example, I was talking to Bonnie on Friday at a 5-hour hearing, a virtual hearing in it was in Nevada, so it was 3 p.m. our time, and at 2:15, I finished taking a shower, was going to put on a tie, had to remember how to put on a tie, and power went out my house. So I had 45 minutes before my hearing, don't have a tie, figure out how to tie it, and I'm 35 minutes away from my office that I haven't been to in Buckhead in about 6 months. I have no idea how to get in. I have no idea if my laptop works or whatever, so I just book it, get in my car, start running. I'm kind of wearing a suit, kind of not wearing a suit. So you've got to kind of like roll with the punches a little bit. You've got to expect that nothing is going to go right or something is going to go wrong. I didn't expect that. And I got there 10 minutes before my hearing, had to get my hair done. That's actually an old picture. I think that's probably 6 months in, so it's probably a June no haircut. I've gone since January of this year without a haircut, so that's been pretty tough.
I think you need to just go ponytail, just man bun at this point. Just go straight man bun. So
give me another month. I'll get that.
So an anonymous attendee, wait, why anonymous? Said, cat walked onto my keyboard during a Zoom call and promptly pointed her butthole at the camera. That's sweet. Thank you for sharing. So, okay, so tools. What's a good way to kind of master this work from home thing, Bonnie? Like, what you are the master of all electronic tools. So we'll take lead from you. What's been working for you? What are new things you've discovered?
Well, you know, since we pivoted to online programming, we pivoted pretty hard. GAPABA's been like nonstop. I think since we started with that really popular general counsel panel discussion with the Fortune 100 companies that had, like, you know, Don Liu from Xerox and so many others, I mean, that had 500 attendees. So I, you know, had to learn kind of on the fly together with the national APABA how to host a webinar with 500 attendees. And then as
Ouch.
time, yeah, that was
So our 47 entities is not even close to.
we have more people watching on Facebook.
Hurts my feelings, Bonnie.
You know, I think we've also sort of reached a slight plateau in people getting zoomed out. So I actually think, because of the informal nature of this discussion, it's actually quite a bit of a breath of fresh air. I mean, one of the things that I've also learned, I mean, I know we weren't showing this on the live stream, but I learned how to animate on PowerPoint. I can animate with the best now and figure out how to put people's heads on costumes and try to make the Zoom experience a lot more fun and interactive. I have learned video making tools. I have learned Zoom webinar best practices. So there's a lot that, I mean, just in terms of my skill sets, I've been really brushing up, because now that we don't have these in-person things where I'm making the name tags or making sure that the people are put at the right tables, that there's a lot of other stuff that I've learned along the way, plus learning how to Zoom with candidates when I'm preparing them for their interviews on Zoom. So as a legal recruiter, now that the space has turned to all online recruiting, you know, you give them tips like make sure that the light is in front of the light source in front of their faces, Jason. Or to have a nice virtual Zoom background. I've actually uploaded quite a bit of fun virtual Zoom backgrounds. No, you don't have to do that. Right.
Nope,
that was necessary.
Well,
And apparently, Bonnie, travel with your posse. According to your superhero alter ego, always go with your posse.
That's right. I love being able to choose the superheroes that represent us, because you know, figuring out what to do during the pandemic, you kind of got to put on your superhero costume and figure it all out. You know, while I chose these to sort of represent you, I think we learned some really interesting nuggets, right, Catherine?
Yes, well, I like the idea of Elastigirl because, one, it was quite personal. It was in the first date my husband and I went on. We went to see The Incredibles. So I thought it was actually very intuitive of you to pick Elastigirl for me. But it does tie into to being flexible. One of the things I've learned is, or maybe my husband's learned, is coordinating schedules. My home office is actually right next to one of the bathrooms in my house. So we now actually have conversations about, well, when can I take a shower and where should I go to the bathroom? Because you really don't want the toilet flushing during your presentation. It doesn't really add, again, that level of professionalism. So it's sort of interesting, the conversations that I've been having, frankly, in my house to sort of maintain professionalism, but also give grace.
Yeah, I think that's great. So, I was talking to someone. I made a Facebook post one morning because I was talking to someone about like how we're no more than 50% dressed. Like I only feel the obligation to be 50% dressed because everything goes with yoga pants and everything goes with shorts and flip flops. So it's all good. You don't see me. And then I think the guy equivalent, so the female equivalent was like put some makeup on for a Zoom call, but then some of us get kind of the fake out where Like, it's not clear. Sometimes people use Zoom, but they're only using voice. So it's a fake out, so you got dressed for nothing. Like, that's like, or other way around, you don't realize until the end that it's like a video call, and you're like, oh my God. So yeah, so that can get quite interesting. Dan, do you have any experience like that?
Two. So I would say the best tool that you can get for your house, for everyone that works from home, is buy like a medium resolution camera. Don't buy those 50 megapixel high resolution cameras that you see everything going on. You can see the books behind. People don't need that information. Just get enough. Don't like go and buy the best thing out there. And so just get enough so they know you're there and they know you're wearing like a blazer or whatever. But don't give them the whole thing. I think that's probably one thing. I guess my only surprise for Zoom was, so I had a pitch that I was doing for a client probably 2 or 3 months into Zoom, and I didn't shave. I didn't shave at all for the first 3 months, and it takes a long time for anything to grow in. So I was actually very proud. Like, what Jason has would take me about 6 months. So I wasn't even halfway there yet. And I didn't want to shave because I really annoyed my wife, but like, it was a pitch and it was on Zoom. So I shaved it all off, and then I was the only one on video. Everyone else was like on voice, and I was like, well, perfect. It took me 3 months to get what I was proud of, and it was all gone. So I guess it was good thing that I prepared for it, but I was very unhappy that I shaved for really nothing.
But I do like the video. Oh, sorry, Angela. I was like,
No, go ahead.
Yeah. And I find that it's, especially as this, in such a stressful time, you try to find ways to make things easier for everybody. I mean, we have to acknowledge this is not an easy time, and seeing people's faces for me is very important, because even though you're not in an office, at least if you're talking to a face, your affect changes. I think your voice changes, and I think people are kinder and more professional if they are on video. Because, I mean, I'm also, frankly, I'm trying to look at you guys, but I'm looking at myself. It's like, how do I look? Do I look okay? But also, when you're saying something, especially, in our lines of work, you have to critique. And I notice that maybe I smile more because I have to look at myself. And I don't want to be the snarly lawyer. And I also have had to give this advice to some of my internal clients. We're in-house counsel, but, our clients are also our colleagues. And I had to have an intervention with some people to saying, let's put our videos on, because I think we'll have more productive, less stressful conversations if you have to look somebody in the face. And it's a profound difference, no video versus video. So, and especially as, being the lawyer in the room, there's a certain leadership role, associated with that. So even though I want to be on a video, and frankly, I dressed up for you guys. This is makeup I don't give to my internal clients for you guys. But even with a bare face, I'm reverting to my Annie roots. You're never fully dressed without a smile. But I've found that it's made a difference training people. And if I'm the only one who's on video, then sometimes you get one person maybe sliding them back, and you call somebody out. Hey, put yourself on video. Conversation and tone completely shifts.
No, I think that's a great point. I'm sorry. I got a funny comment I'm going to read to you guys from David Tim. He says, he definitely has a polo shirt on the back hook next to his computer, and no one's commented on the fact that he wears the same shirt for every meeting yet. So thank you for that, David, of the crusty shirt. So who was that? Was that Jason that was about to jump in?
Yeah, I was just going to add that I think Zoom calls and video conferencing is here to stay. I don't think it's going anywhere. Once the pandemic is done, think about the amount of time it's saving all of us from having to travel to places and convene when, there are some meetings that can happen on a video call, and it saves everyone time and the stress of having to participate in that event, participate in that meeting. So one of the things I'm looking forward to post-pandemic is to see how corporate America, but also just how we go about in our daily lives will change from the pandemic. I mean, Patricia just pointed out that it also saves money, which is absolutely true. I think there's a lot of positives that will come from this new normal, and I think it also says how, it's forced lawyers, because I always see lawyers as being very slow to change, particularly those in law firms. It's just, they're just very slow to come along with the technology of the time, but it's forced all of us, whether you're in-house or at a law firm, to really just come up to speed and start using the technology that's out there. So to me, it's exciting to see what's ahead.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Bonnie, what's been your experience with video call?
Well, the one thing I will have to say is Wi-Fi, good Wi-Fi can make or break a video call, because if you drop it, then it causes a lot of disruption. However, I will say, we're all human creatures. In-person contact, human contact is necessary, and I hope that we'll find the right medium. Yes, I find it incredibly convenient to, just reach out and immediately have a Zoom chat, but there's nothing like watching real human emotions and be able to, I hate to say it, I don't know if the handshake is going to totally disappear, but to be able to pat somebody on the back or to comfort somebody, I can't imagine the grief of all the people who passed away and their loved ones not being able to say goodbye in person, or just to celebrate things like birthdays. At first, I think it was sort of a fun and novel experiment. We were doing everything on Zoom, but as the months have started to wear on, I know I reached sort of a zenith plateau level of, okay, there's so many Zoom things I can do. What can I now do to humanize things again? So I have gone out to meet a few people, or just drive-by hellos. There were a few candidates a few new GAPABA partners in council who we celebrated earlier this year, and it was my privilege to at least drop by their house to give them each a bottle of wine. And by doing that, I could say hello from a socially distanced place and congratulate them. I think that meant a lot.
From a healthcare perspective, because I work for a healthcare company, and we look at the different trends, and telemedicine is definitely on the rise. But another huge indicator that we were just looking at this morning is the rise in mental health issues that people are having. I mean, for those like I mentioned extroverts earlier. It's a physiological reaction to being around another person. You get their energy. And I don't think it's limited just to extroverts. Humans need that kind of interaction. So it's sort of that balancing act of how many people do you go and see in person? And I think this also involves the idea of quarantining. Who's your circle of 10 people that you trust enough to say, okay, are you okay? Are you asymptomatic? I'm going to hedge my bet on you 10 people. But humans need that. And some people might miss it more than others, but we all need that.
Yeah, so we've started to go out to actual restaurants and sit outside, but then like between eating, kind of put our mask back on and then try to socialize. But the worst part of it is like not hugging your friends. Like you see them and you haven't seen them in such a long time and you want to go hug them. So I'm going back to hugging. I don't care like if it's I'm going to make it fashionable again because that's just how it's going to be. So I'm going to turn our attention for a moment. There. Like, I'm not, if anyone knows me, I'm not an outdoors person, but then we found that there's an actual bamboo forest like 10 minutes away from the house in Buckhead, which was shocking.
Angela, where is that? What trail is that?
My daughter knows. I think she said it was Palisades or something. It's near Raj's house. Yeah, okay, Casey, thank you. I get Lifeline. Casey Chow, East Palisades Trail.
There you go.
There we go. Thank you, Casey.
Now there's no social distancing. Everyone will be going there. You blew your secret.
I know, but you know what? It's so cool because when you're on the trail, like people are super friendly. They're with their dogs, and their kids, and they're all masked. And it's like it was just a really great experience. It's like I'm in the outdoors and I'm kind of enjoying it. This is awesome. So I'm going to turn our attention to something controversial. The schools. There was an article that I posted from Dr. Sanjay Gupta, and apparently it was like a firestorm. Like I felt like he was trying to do right by people and just kind of explain his perspective as a parent, as a doctor, but then like the social media just sort of exploded on him, and people were like, "You're judging me," and then some people are like, "You have resources because you Dr. Gupta and your private school," and so it was just kind of, there was a lot of ugly reaction to it. So I'm going to turn to Jason, who's on the board of the, if your kids go to the Atlantic school system, then you're going to be like the recipient of all you're going to go to the complaint department. Oh my God. Like, I don't want to be on TV next to the death count. I think that would be a little bit like, it was like 579,000 deaths. How do you feel about that, Jason? So Jason, take it away. Tell us about schools and your experience with schools. And I'm sure it was agonizing if you're part of the decision, go live or, stay at home, do virtual. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so it was a pretty tough decision, but I think it was the right decision to start the school year virtually in Atlanta Public Schools. It's one, and for those who don't know, I'm the chair of the Atlanta Public School Board. I've been on the school board since 2014 and have been chair since 2017. And the number one priority for us was the priority of our families, our students, and our teachers. And we had a high number of teachers who felt uncomfortable with having kids in classrooms, particularly because when you're a public school system, you can't do what the other smaller school systems or other small institutions, private schools can do, where they can kind of limit interaction, limit class sizes, have smaller classrooms. We can't do that because we have so many students who come to our schools. And here's what we don't know. We don't know much about how students transmit the virus. And all of that played into the fact that we didn't want to infect our staff. We didn't want our staff coming back because over half of them have pre-existing conditions that make them vulnerable. But we also didn't want to have our kids taking the virus back to their families. When you look at who's dying from the virus, it is Black and brown families. And when you're a school system that has over 75% Black students, we are unnecessarily, in my opinion, putting those families at risk. And that risk was too great for us to bear. So we are assessing over the next 9 weeks to see how it goes. And hopefully, if people socially distance, if they wash their hands, if they wear masks, we'll, drop the curve, start to have it downward. I'm still waiting for the numbers to do this and stay that way. Unfortunately, in Georgia, what we've seen is the numbers continue to go up, but we have to be safer. And I'll tell you that when we made that decision, we were the first school system to make that decision in the metro Atlanta area, and we got a ton of hate mail. And I'm kind of used to that, being an elected official. It happens all the time. But there were a lot of people who were struggling with our decision, and I feel for those families. I have a kindergartner who's starting. He's going to be starting kindergarten as a virtual learner. That to me is going to be impossible. But look, we have to do what's best for our community, not just what's best for my child and my family. So we'll see how it goes, and hopefully here in the next 9 weeks we'll see the numbers start to drop, so that we can finally get back to in-person learning. But I am concerned about where we are as a state, in particular in Georgia, because when you look at other cities, other school districts around the world, not just the country, around the world, that have gone back to face-to-face learning, none have gone back in an environment where Georgia is today, where infection rates are substantially high.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. It's very concerning, but I think the other point you made about people kind of giving you hate mail, I just find that really shocking, because I think that, you know, we just have to support each other through this. You know, like, it's hard. It's a hard decision. There are rational parents who are sending their kids back. There are rational parents who are choosing not to. And whatever your resources and your situations are, like, you know, I think you need to give love to other people, because it's such a hard time. But my son goes to Westminster, and they elected to do mandatory testing for all 2,000 of the students and the faculty before going back. And they got hate for that, but they found 11 people who tested positive. So, you know, I think ultimately it was the right decision, because you pulled 11 people out of that population. So let's take another poll. For those of you who have school-age children, do you have homeschooling duties during the work week? Let's see, because yeah, I have not, thank God, because we do not want me educating my children. So Catherine, what has been your experience with schools?
It's very interesting. Actually, one of the things I struggle with, or that's important to me, is sort of along the lines of what you said. We need to support each other. I think most of the people on this call come from a position of privilege. You know, I have a job that allows me to work from home very comfortably, and I was a telecommuter before we were forced to. One of the great ironies is that I joined Change Healthcare because they were right in my backyard, and 2 weeks after I started, oh, you're back to work from home, which was an easy transition for me because I had done it. But again, the idea of supporting others in the community. My daughter goes to public school, and it's a Title I public school, meaning that there's a significant portion of the children who are, the school gets money because of the percentage of kids who are at a certain socioeconomic level. And the school, the PTO, frankly, has stepped up to continue providing meals to those families who would ordinarily get subsidized breakfast and lunch. So when I look at support, there was my personal preference. I wanted her to have face-to-face interaction. My daughter's an only child, and in a moment of frustration one day, she looked at me and said, I have to talk to somebody besides you. Nothing personal, Mom. And I got it. I mean, I'm not great company for an 11-year-old girl. I admit it. I'm old from her perspective. But how do we support each other? And I just, it's hard to know what to advocate. I have my personal preference, but I want to support people who are struggling because they lost their jobs and they lost health care. They don't have access to the subsidized meal plans. I want to support the teachers, one of whom is a friend of mine and reached out to me and asked for subsidized will writing services. And that really struck home for me. You know, she's like, can you help me write a will? Oh my gosh, it's a real fear for many people working in the schools. Also the people who are considered essential workers and have to go back to work. Where do they send their kids? It is, you know, complex, and it's like I want to support, and it's hard to know what to do. So I sometimes feel myself being a little passive. Well, what do you want? Well, what's best for the community? And acknowledging how hard this is for the decision makers, you know, taking the hate mail, and the parents struggling. Do I take my job because so many people are losing theirs, but I have to leave? Do you leave your kids at home? And that's sort of, really, it's an existential struggle. And I sometimes wonder what, you know, we, you know, in the community can do to help those who, you know, need a little extra help.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Dan, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I'm fortunate or unfortunate not to have a school-age child. Like Jason, I have a 2-year-old, and we've decided not to. We took her out of daycare, and I think one of the reasons why was my wife and I are fortunate enough to be professionals that we work from home, and that we can be flexible enough to, you know, trade off and take kids one time or another. And the reason why we did it was, you know, I mean, there are folks who need daycare, like first responders and things like that, and to reduce the number of folks who are at daycare, that's kind of one of the things we do. Obviously, you know, Catherine, to your point, there's just so much more you can do. and she's also a good field hand in our backyard. So, I mean, there's so much more you can do. I think a little bit of patience, a little bit of generosity goes a long way. There's things that little things I do when I make something, a fresh loaf of bread or some cookies. I'll send it to my neighbor to just tell them I'm thinking about them, and just to realize that, like, look, our society isn't really built for all of us to be working from home and not having care for our children, and just being a little more patient with our spouses, which is important. I think it starts there, and then with our neighbors. I think that's going to go a long way, but it's certainly not the solution that we all need.
I didn't get a loaf of bread, Dan. I mean, Bonnie, did you get a loaf of bread?
No.
Look, where's my loaf of bread?
I'm working on it. I'm working on it. No, it'll come. It'll come for sure.
So that sounds like a stress reliever. So I'm going to turn our attention to kind of what's your, here's Julia Chen. This was early on in the pandemic at our Publix, and she decided this was a very Instagrammable moment because she's 19 years old, and she's like, look at this. So yeah, that was the early paper hoarding. But there's still, now I think the paper's all back, but the wipes, I think, are still a rare commodity. So my husband Jack belongs to a Facebook group where they alert each other about the existence of wipes. Like they'll say, like, Amazon right now. Go on and go get their wipes. There you go.
There's who's got them all.
That's the hoarder.
So there was an evening where he ran out to a Target that's not near our house at 9:30 before closing time to get Clorox wipes, and then was very upset because they were the small jars, not the big jars. Sorry. So tell me, you guys. So I've discovered the great outdoors. What has everybody else been doing for pandemic stress relief? Bonnie?
Yeah. So I was kind of in the doldrums with my exercise routine. It kind of went up and then went down, and then unfortunately, last month, John Lewis and C.T. Vivian passed away. And that really seemed to bring up a lot of emotions for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people who realized what an incredible legacy he left for us. And so, to my great pleasure, I found that there was a project called my54.org, which was to reenact the 54-mile walk from Selma to Montgomery, because as we all know, John Lewis did not make it past the bridge, but the original plan was for them to march all the way. And so I've been logging my virtual miles. This started on the day of John Lewis's funeral and will end on August 28th, C.T. Vivian's birthday. And the great thing about that is the project will email you things like to listen to. So I listened to John Lewis's speech at the March on Washington. And I've been really, educating myself and pushing myself. I was not exercising every day, but when I calculated the number of miles I would have to do between now and August 28th, I said, oh my gosh, can I do it? So I challenged myself. And I literally have woken up every morning for the last 10 days saying, John Lewis! So because if he could do what he did, then I can certainly get up in the morning and get my butt on a walking trail and do anywhere between 2 to 4 miles. So that has been a lot of inspiration for me in the last few days. And of course, politically, what's going on out in the world, it's just raised a whole level of awareness and consciousness of how we can be helping shape the narrative. And I feel if I can add to that or inspire others or be inspired by the legacy of one of our greatest heroes, then I think I should do it.
Yeah, but I think that's great. I did want to interject one thing that one note we got from Ashri Sharma. She said the same day that the schools were announcing they weren't reopening, there were leadership meetings at her office, and management jumped in to help coordinate to coordinate babysitting for everyone, babysitting pools in the community, which I think is awesome. That's really, really cool. So you've discovered a little bit of exercise and a little bit inspirational exercise because of John Lewis. I think exercise is one of those things. I was going to a bunch of gyms that I'm not, one of them I'm going to, one of them I'm not going to anymore. And I find that, you know, that exercise equipment is like one of the, I had to wait 2 months for a treadmill. I know someone else who waited like months for Peloton. If you're trying to find a weight out there, it's like black market right now. Like you can't find a 20-pound weight in the city, like anywhere, unless it's like some kind of, you know, DL deal on like Facebook. So tell me.
You got to use bags of rice.
That's what?
You got to use bags of rice and like water jugs for weights now. You know, got to go old school, and that's $5.
Child, Dan, you can bench a small child.
Yeah, use what you got.
So Jason, tell me about your kind of your relaxation or stress relief or exercise during the pandemic.
Yeah, so I typically I miss basketball terribly. I play basketball. That's what I do for fun, and I have not been able to do that since mid-March. So I've taken up running. I run, and then I walk with my wife every day. So that's helped us out a lot. But I also think that the bright side of this pandemic is that we do exercise every day. We have time to do that because we're not going anywhere. We don't have events we have to attend. We don't have something to do with the kids. So we walk. So my Apple Watch has been keeping track of our exercise, and my move goal, I think I'm on day like 88 in terms of meeting my move goal, which is great. It's awesome. So that's been my stress relief there.
That's great.
And I should also say, aside from exercising, I have done way more shopping online than I need to. I mean,
what are you buying?
It is terrible. Oh, I mean, stuff I don't need. It's random. It would be like, oh, you know, how do I connect this to the TV, to the wall? I don't know. Let's go on Home Depot, and then you find a contraption that'll do it, and then you buy it. It's insane how much online shopping my wife and I have done. But you know, I guess post-pandemic we'll have everything we need.
But then you get that Amazon box that shows up and you're like, oh, what is it? What's in the box? It's exciting.
Who ordered it?
I know, it's like, what's in there? Oh, what is it? The earrings? What is it? So we did a poll. How do you feel your social life has been? Do you feel like your social life has been severely impacted by the pandemic? 96% yes. Yes. What strategies do you utilize to stay in touch with family and friends? Schedule video chats, 73%. That's a very organized group to schedule video chat. Social media chats, 38%. This is not 100%. It's like 500%. Social media post chats, 38%. Circle of trust. Oh, maybe you can do multiples. Circle of trust. Outdoor activities or outdoor dining, 38%. Regular phone calls, 50%. Socially distanced sports, 8%, and other 23%. Like texting. Texting is great. Come on, let's do texting. So who did I not get?
So Angela, I'll tell you, when the pandemic first started, I had a lot of ongoing happy hours. Like Tuesday I had one, Wednesday I had one early, Wednesday I had one late. And the problem is, like, the bartender at my house is fantastic. He knows my drinks exactly the way I want them. And there's no line. There's never a line to the bathroom, to the drinks, and, you know, there's no Uber service necessary. And the problem I saw was, like, man, I'm, you know, doing a lot of happy hours. And next thing you know, it was, like, a lot of drinks. So I kind of pushed back on being less, like, you know, being more responsibly social. And not everything has to be a happy hour. It could be a social distance walk, or walking with or talking to somebody when I'm walking somewhere, or, you know, having, you know, a glass of wine, as opposed to the special of the night here at the Wynn House. Yeah. So, you know, I've kind of pushed back on that.
Well, you are not alone, because online alcohol sales have gone up 250% since the beginning of the pandemic. So,
and Governor Yeah, recently passed permitted home delivery of alcohol.
Because he loves us and he wants us to not have masks and wants us to have drinks. So there she is.
Yeah, I've had to cut back myself. The new rule is, okay, you have to wait till Friday. But I give myself little cheats, like today.
There you go.
Yeah, it's like what is it, the Facebook meme going around? I've gone through my biweekly alcohol run by Tuesday, twice a week. So it's making a conscious decision. It's like, because it's so easy to run downstairs. Oh, this is stressing me out. If I have a glass of wine, it'll make it better. And you have to walk a lot of miles to burn off those calories. So maybe if I drink less wine, I don't have to walk as much. To trade off.
It's going to be you in about an hour, right?
But oh yeah, you put my giraffe up there. This is sort of like a random note on maybe home office. I have been lucky and most people actually like my background, and my team has actually now named the giraffe. He shows up on so many of my video calls.
Nice.
That he's become sort of like my assistant. So it's Bob the giraffe, keeps me company. So no, I'm not drinking alone there. Yeah, Bob.
We have an online comment here. Mimi Lee misses in-person time within 6 feet and without masks. One plus is she's hearing from people by Zoom and people she hasn't heard from in decades, which is great. Check on your people. I think it's great. But yeah, the whole socializing with masks thing is super awkward, I think. It's like this dinner we were having, we're like, put our masks on, take them off, eat, put them back on. It's no fun. That's why we're exhausted. So let's talk about something good. Let's like end on a positive note. What's something good that's come out of it for you? Bonnie.
Well, I think I mentioned it, but I am really fortunate to be in a happy marriage. And I think a lot of people may not be in a similar situation. So I'm just very fortunate that I can go home and Frank works from home. He teaches at Emory University. So being married to an educator during these times, he certainly has gone through quite a bit of stress and retraining as school has restarted. But you know, we are committed to therapy, actually, and I think mental health therapy is really important during this time. And it's a once a week thing that you know, we talk online. We're a therapist, and especially for those who may be very lonely or have no other outlet. That's really important. It's almost like a temperature check. We may not have something really major to talk about, but one of the things that happened during this time is my dad actually had to have pacemaker replacement surgery. And that, of course, is very stressful. He's 86 years old, and the thought of him going into a hospital during the time of COVID was something that was very worrisome for a family. But fortunately, it happened right during maybe the dip before it rose all over again. And the hospital staff were amazing. It was at St. Joseph's, where I believe your husband also works, Angela. And, you know, he was in and out in the same day, and we got him home. He was comfortable. So I'm very grateful to be close to family and to be able to see them, even though I can't necessarily touch them. My mom turned 82 last weekend. We celebrated. She baked her own birthday pie. And, you know, it's that quality time that we get to spend with those closest to us, if you can. That's something I'm very grateful for. And to be able to be inspired by the change I'm seeing in our society.
What about you, Dan? What's some positive? Other than the hair, other than the man bun that's coming.
The man coming, and I've saved a little bit of money on not having a haircut and dry cleaning, which is always good. Good bottom line. But while Bonnie was talking, like my 2-year-old just came in and gave me the green crayon that she always gives me at 5 o'clock every day, 5:30 every day. And I think, you know, that's something that's and I don't know why it's green. She's like, "Here you go, Daddy." And I'm like, okay,
Green
thanks.
crayon time.
You know, so it's green crayon time. That means it's time to drink. It's 5 o'clock somewhere at some point.
Here you go.
It's my clock. But you know, I mean, look, if this is the regular times, I'd be rushing home at 6 o'clock, hitting traffic, and then picking her up from daycare. So like, that obviously, you know, there's obviously a lot of times where I'm like, man, I wish I had someone to take care of my kid. But like, it's really been cool. I think Jason could probably attest to this. Like, to see your like young kids like grow. Like, I've never seen like her get smart and learn words that I have used and stuff like that. Like, I'm constantly on these like Facebook calls with my nieces and nephews, and they call me Uncle Dan, Uncle Dan, Uncle Dan. And then like the next thing you know, she's calling me Uncle Dan. And then I'm like, this is not right. I mean, it's actually Daddy. She's like, no, it's Uncle Dan. And so like the things she'll pick up, and like we have inside jokes now, which is pretty cool. So like this time has been, if there's a silver lining, it's been the time I've spent with my kids. If there's a disadvantage, it's the time I've spent with my kids.
Yeah. Now we know your code word, green crayon time. Dan needs to have his green crayon time.
That's great. That's awesome.
He's having green crayon time right now. So Jason, tell me about a positive for you in this pandemic.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off of what Daniel was talking about, is watching my 2-year-old and my 4-year-old grow. I've had more time with them than I have ever. Being a lawyer, being an elected official, I'm always at events. I'm always coming and going somewhere. But during this pandemic, I've been able to watch them grow and learn, and that's been awesome for me. The other thing has been something that Bonnie said, which is the relationship that I have with my wife, I feel like is stronger than ever before. And I'm very fortunate and grateful for that, because that could it could have been the opposite, right? But in my situation, my wife and I we spent a lot of time together over the last several months. But it's been amazing. It's been amazing for our relationship. And I think it's partly because we were both doing so much prior to the pandemic that this allowed us to take a pause, take a step back, and spend time together, which has been great. And I should also say that I'm on vacation, so I'm down at the beach, and it was great to finally get away from our home for a long period of time. So I encourage everyone, not everyone, you don't all want to do it at the same time, but having a socially distanced vacation is possible, especially nowadays with Airbnb and VRBO, where you can have homes that are away from people in driving distance. It's possible to get an escape and spend time with your loved ones, and then go back to reality. So I hope that people, for their mental health, for their general wellness, are finding time to get away, because it's helpful.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and I see a lot of people doing driving trips. I mean, that's kind of what we've certainly discovered a little more driving, like things that are close by and all that. How about you, Catherine? What have you done?
Well, to sort of tie into what everyone else has been saying about relationships, I would reiterate that, but sort of take a different tack, and that's like relationship with myself, sort of referring to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's wonderful to sort of get off the top of that pyramid, that idea of like self-fulfillment and self-actualization, and to say, now is not the time to be the best possible 110% type A version of yourself that you could be. It's okay to be in that bottom part of the pyramid, which is physical needs and safety. If you look at that, it's like safety is, the first row is food or air. The second is safety. Able to just take a step back from having to always be on that, and to say it's okay to worry about my safety, and like planning a vacation. Okay, as long as we're safe, this vacation is a success. It doesn't have to be Facebook worthy or Instagram worthy. It can just be, we went and we came back and nobody got sick. And that is a success. And sort of that idea of learning how to do that. I think as lawyers, most of us are probably type A and probably are constantly trying to hit that, top part of the pyramid of needs and achievement. And to practice not having to do that and focusing on more basic needs, I've found has been, in a way, kind of relaxing. And I like that. It's okay to worry about basic needs and have that be meeting those needs and having that be a success.
Yes. And so speaking of needs, let's talk about pandemic foods. Some people are discovering cooking. Some people are baking bread for their real friends, not their GAPABA friends like Dan, apparently. Now we know who
I gotta go. This
has
is awkward.
we know who Dan really loves. So what's, if you've discovered cooking, tell us about that. Tell us about your favorite kind of pandemic meal, Bonnie.
It's interesting because I only cook for myself. I actually have learned that Frank likes to cook for himself. So he's a very basic kind of guy. He will open up, the can of tuna salad and put it on some bread, and he's very happy with that. Meanwhile, I have discovered crispy chili oil at Buford Highway Farmers Market. In fact, on my trips to the Buford Highway Farmers Market, I make it a point to try something really odd or strange that I would never have tried before. I think last week's was the pineapple bubble tea cookie, which is a cookie that's stuffed with bubble tea. It sounded really good. It was nasty. But there was also this Korean ice cream in the shape of a fish.
Oh, that's good.
It's so
we have that.
delicious, right?
Really good. It's Japanese. I think it's Japanese.
Well, it's got Korean writing on it. Oh. I'll fight you for that. But for cooking for myself, I've discovered a lot of tofu cubes at, I don't know, my taste buds have changed during the pandemic. What seemed really strange now seems quite normal. Harissa tofu cubes at the Publix is delicious. I know that sounds odd, but it really is delicious.
What about you, Dan? Other than the bread that you're baking for your real friends, what are you eating?
Yeah, best friend bread is always good. It's so I'm probably opposite of Frank. I like to cook for a lot of people, and so like last night I made beef jerky.
Haven't been invited
and then I donated. You got to live in Decatur. Angela, I've been to your house. You're far. It's very, very far. It's like I need a passport to get there. It's so far. It's so far. We'll meet. We'll get somewhere. So I've bought a bunch of cookbooks and stuff like that. When I do barbecue, when I smoke a pork butt or whatever, I'll give them to my neighbors and things like that. Cookies, cinnamon rolls. Things like that. If it can't stay all in house, because if it does, we're gonna just blow up. So I usually make enough for 10, 15 people. The lucky 10 to 15.
The lucky 10 to 15 of your real friends. Okay, so if the GAPABA board is on, for those of you who have not sampled Dan's cooking, you'll know. Catherine, what are you?
You're not missing out.
Who's cooking?
Well, I sort of in the idea of homeschooling. I've taught my daughter arts and crafts, and I've also encouraged her to take on cooking in the kitchen. So we have all sorts of interesting meals in which she takes charge. The best version actually is no sugar banana bread. So I get to have this really delicious treat, and it's just bananas and a little bit of flour and no sugar, and it's absolutely delicious. And I don't have to make it.
Yay! What about you, Jason? What are you eating, or who's the cook in your family? Oh, muted. He's muted.
I did what Bonnie told us exactly. Don't do it, but I did anyway. Apologies. So my wife does most of the cooking, but I cook every once in a while. And we actually try to do a balance between takeout and cooking. So we try to do cooking in-house Monday through Thursday and then takeout on the weekends. Although we have done a ton of barbecuing. So I've taken up just grilling a ton during the pandemic. And we also discovered that, and it's unfortunately gone away since restaurants have reopened, but some of the meat distributors and seafood distributors around town started selling direct to consumer, which was awesome because we would buy all kinds of meats and seafood wholesale. Now that's kind of gone away, so we're trying to figure out how to, grill a nice steak for an affordable price. But that's what makes me happy is to get a nice juicy steak on a grill.
Yeah, I mean, but I really like I've just started to wander back to restaurants, and I really like the idea of eating a meal that's really nice, that I didn't make, that didn't come out of a paper bag and didn't come out of a carton. I like it. I just like it.
Ditto. Agreed. Agreed.
So anyway, so parting thoughts. We've got about 20 minutes left. We can end a little bit early. Any parting thoughts around the room? Let's start with Bonnie.
Well, I would encourage everybody that while you may be stuck at home, I think the consensus among all of us is that this is some quality time, found time, that we never would have had but for this. And time during the pandemic is sort of this warp. It was like we started in January, which seemed like yesterday, and yet it seemed like forever long ago. And now we're in September, mid-August, going on September. This is the time we sort of thought that we were going to be getting back to normal. But the Peachtree Road Race, which I had signed up for, just announced today that, of course, they're suspending it and going virtual, and that was supposed to be over Thanksgiving. So I would just encourage you to find little nuggets of inspiration where you can. I mean, I found mine in being inspired by the legacy of heroes, which kind of led me to put the superhero theme for this panel. But, to be able to meet and talk with different people, I was talking to Pratyusha, who is our tech person in the background, and she really, as a young law student graduate, has just been reaching out to mentors. And surprisingly, people are just all too happy to pick up the phone and chat. She was talking to a federal judge today, and I don't think that's, an opportunity that necessarily would have happened prior to the pandemic. She had a one-on-one chat with the federal judge who happened to come to GAPABA events last year and that she had met. So especially for the in-house counsel who are here, I kind of would be interested in knowing it, and certainly with Dan also, the opportunities for mentorship that you've been able to find, because I know that law students especially will be struggling this coming year without that in-person experience, without the ability to develop more of their soft networking skills that will be critical for them to pursue their careers in the future. I would encourage more mentorship.
That's a great point. What do you think, Catherine? Parting thoughts?
Sorry, distraction. The idea that, and myself, I'm craving this very much, this return to normal, but being open and agile as to what the new normal should be, and not excessive attachment. That's, it's hard. I'm definitely a creature of habit, and I want things to go back to normal, but it's comfortable. But the idea of thinking about, well, what could be new? New offices, and what does work look like? And is it okay to not work 14 hours a day and to leave aside that sense of what we've always done. Well, as in-house counsel, you're constantly available. And it's like, no, now we have the option of stopping at 5 and doing childcare and getting to see our kids and being very involved in, their day-to-day life. And just because you're a professional doesn't mean that you also can't be, a mentor, a mom, a dad, a volunteer, and that we have that flexibility now. And maybe that's the new normal.
Yeah. And Jason, any other thoughts? What happened?
I'd say that that check on your friends, check on your family members, check on the ones that you think are doing well. Check on the ones that need support, because this is a tough time for everyone, and I think it's important just to make sure that people feel connected. I think that's incredibly important. And the other thing I was going to say, this is not to get too political, but it's hard when you're an elected official, but leadership matters. And, we wouldn't be here where we are 6 months after the start of the pandemic but for a failure in leadership. And that's not saying anything about political party, because there are some states that are doing it well, regardless of political party. There are some countries that are doing it well regardless of political leaning. So I think that as we enter a season, and we're in that season of civic engagement, it's important for everyone to exercise their right to vote. And if you are unhappy with where you are today, and how we are as a society today, then express yourself. I think that's important, because sometimes I think back and sit down and think like, wow, we're having a meeting virtually. Why? How did we get here? And it all points back to just leadership and the importance of it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Leadership, and then combining it with what Catherine said, like, to be a flexible leader for people who are in leadership positions, to kind of take the moment and run with it and try to do the best you can with it and try to be encouraging and positive and check on your friends. So speaking of checking on friends, Dan, who has been withholding bread from me, what's your parting thought?
Well, you'll be getting bread next week. Sure. There's no doubt in my mind that's going to happen. I think Bonnie, Catherine, and Jason have said a lot of great things that I would echo, especially, go out and exercise your right to vote, and do that, and do it early, and so there's no issues there. I would say, this is not a series of sprints. This is a situation where it's going to require a collective communal solution here. And, you can control what you can do. Unfortunately, there's not a lot you can control for other people as an individual. And taking it, day by day, finding the small victories is important, because I think a lot of us are perfectionists, or we hold ourselves to a very, very high standard. But there's going to be days when I come home or when I'm off to finish work, where there's not going to be a nutritious meal on the table, or the house isn't clean. And give yourself a little grace. I think give others and yourself a little grace, because I think you can't hold yourself to that standard, and so I don't think it's very healthy to do that. So I think that'll make this pandemic a lot easier to go through, not only for yourself but probably for the others around you equally. So I think, lower the bar for yourself. Don't hold yourself to this high standard that I think we're all accustomed to. I think that's probably very healthy for all of us. And wear your mask.
And wear your mask. I think that's great. Yeah. So I think those are all really, really good thoughts. Is is to give yourself grace and to be supportive and give other people grace during this time. So thank you all so much for joining me. I had fun. It was a great time. I hope that the audience, they looked like they were lively and engaged. And I think maybe we'll just kind of cut out a little bit early. There is other programming coming. Bonnie, yes. Yes,
Oh,
ma'am.
yeah, I was just going to say, don't forget to talk about our upcoming great slate of programming.
Yeah, no, you go ahead.
Yes, so we have, well, thank you for being part of our Avengers crew today. But it was really great to collaborate with ACC for the first time for this panel discussion. I think this is hopefully a program that we can continue to develop good relationships for future programs. But we have some exciting programming. Next week, we have a cybersecurity CLE. It's been quite popular. I think we have already 80 people signed up. And for the first 85 who sign up, Georgia CLE will be covered by the sponsor, which is great, Class LLC. And then we also will have a very interesting panel on Asian Americans breaking into Hollywood, moderated by our very own Michael Wu, where we'll have a few content creators. I think we're going to even have the director of that new Netflix breakout hit, Indian Matchmaking. She will be on the panel, but also the author of a new book called Love Boat Taipei, for those of you who recall being sent overseas by your parents during your high school years to study the language, but ended up partying your asses off. That would be fun too. And just, watch out, go to our website, GAPABA.org, and I'm sure ACC has some interesting programming because Catherine, you're president-elect, and we just had Melanie Dowse on as well. So.
All right. Well, I think that's a wrap for us. Everybody, have a great evening. Thank you all, panelists, Jason, Dan, Catherine, and Bonnie. Everyone have a wonderful evening. Thank you for joining us, and stay safe.
Bye.